This, ladies and gentlemen, doesn't need an introduction. This is the Triumph Speed 400. You probably already know this motorcycle. What you probably don't remember anymore is the splash it made with the pricing upon launch. It got everyone thinking, it made everyone sit up and take notice. But of course, that was introductory pricing. Over the few months, the price has gone up. So Triumph has now introduced this, the Speed 400 T4. It's a cheaper variant based on the Speed 400. In fact, Bajaj insists it's a completely different motorcycle. So we are here to find out how it actually performs. But the way I look at it, I think it's a masterstroke, especially if you are in the market wanting a Speed 400 but it feels like a little bit of a stretch. This might make a lot of sense. If you are in the share market, it again makes a lot of sense because this is aiming to bring in some really big numbers. But if you are a Triumph fan, it might just be a disaster. Wait till the end to know why I say that. So let's address the elephant in the room. Why was this variant even needed? Was it the Royal Enfield Hunter and Guerrilla effect, or is Triumph India just trying to cast a wider net? I think it's a bit of both. You see, the Hunter and the Guerrilla have been raking in a lot of numbers with their roadster charm. And then you have bikes like the Bajaj Pulsar NS400Z, which are offering a tempting price tag with a lot of bang for the buck. So Triumph India obviously needed to respond. They saw that there are gaps in this market that they could fill with the T4. So it is essentially aimed at those who want the big T badge without the hefty price tag.
So where does the Speed 400 T4 sit in the market? Let's break it down.
It's still a 400, which means it offers a performance advantage over the likes of the Royal Enfield Hunter 350. And in terms of the pricing, it slots between the Pulsar 400 and the Royal Enfield Guerrilla 450, again undercutting the Royal Enfield. So these are the kind of gaps that it aims to fill, both in terms of pricing and also in terms of performance.
It uses the same bore and stroke as the Speed 400 we know of already, but has a 9 PS lower power output and marginally lesser torque, which is achieved by playing with the cams, the crank and the software. It also idles at a slightly lower 1200 RPM and has a distinct sound at standstill.
Let's play spot the differences. You will see a more satin finished exhaust on this one. That's an all black. But let's also take a listen. So when I rev both the engines, you'll probably not hear much of a difference, but at idling RPM, you will hear a bit of a thump. Yep, that is what was engineered. Again, squarely aimed at Royal Enfield, they engineered a thump in this. So how have they done that? Now, there are going to be a few key changes in the engine for it. Both are still going to be the 398cc mils, but this runs a slightly heavier crank, so you get more crank inertia. It also runs different camshafts for a different inlet and exhaust timing, and the throttle body itself is a 32mm versus a 46mm on the standard Speed 400. So what they've gone with is not just the thumb but also a more relaxed riding feel, again squarely aimed at Royal Enfield. So while the Speed 400 is aimed at those who want a slightly racy performance but not as on the edge performance as a KTM, this one goes even mellower but not as lazy as Royal Enfield. So if you want a motorcycle that is easy to cruise on compared to the standard Speed 400, something that's easy to just linger on at about 100, 110 kilometers an hour on the highway, and then again a relaxed performance in the city, this is the one that they have for you. Triumph has also changed the gearing. Now the standard Speed 400 comes with a 43-tooth rear sprocket, whereas the T4 gets a 39-tooth rear sprocket. Now usually A smaller rear sprocket also translates to better top speed, but with the drop in power, with the changes in engine and all of that, what you're getting is a top speed of about 135 kilometers an hour. Because you see, in the Indian conditions, usually 120 to 130 is a decent cruising speed, so to say. And again, because it's squarely aimed at Royal Enfield, 120, 130 is usually the zone Royal Enfields aren't very comfortable in. So they want to make sure that the speed T4 still feels comfortable at that speed. But I believe 100 to 120 is still the ideal cruising speed for the new T4.
That said, cruising at 100 to 120 kilometers an hour in top gear puts the engine in the 5 to 6000 RPM zone. And the engine does feel a bit buzzy in that rev zone, especially in the pegs. But there is no dearth of power, and a quick twist of the wrist not only helps build speeds quickly towards the 135 km/h top whack, but also reveals a meaty torque spread perfect for the city and highway use. If the T4 is bought solely by casual riders, as Bajaj expects, they will not even feel the 10 PS power deficit thanks to the strong mid-range torque.
If you recall the 400cc single-cylinder comparison that we did recently, you might remember me saying that the brakes on the Speed 400 feel a bit spongy despite the sintered brake pads. And now the feel is even spongier with the T4 because one, it goes with high mu organic calipers. So organic calipers are common across many single-cylinder entry-level performance motorcycles that you see. But this one is using a high mu organic pad, so that has higher levels of friction, but still feels a bit spongy, just the way the standard Speed 400 does. Also, it gets actually mounted calipers versus the radial mounting that you see here, because you see, you get upside down forks on this. This has standard forks, so as a package, you have to go ahead with actual mounted calipers. The diameter for the disc, however, stays the same. The wheels on both the bikes are also going to be similar. What's going to be different is the choice of rubber. Now, speaking of choices, from 2025, the standard Speed 400 will also give you the option of Vredestein tires, which hopefully should be even grippier than the Apollos that we already like. However, for the T4, the only option that you're going, at least as of now, is going to be the MRFs. Now, we have sampled these tires in the past on other motorcycles, and it's a pretty decent set, and it will do most of the stuff that the Speed 400 is going to do. Of course, at higher leans on the edge, the Speed 400 is going to be better, and that's going to be more than just the tires, it's also the suspension coming into play and all of that. But like I said, most of the stuff that the Speed 400 will achieve, the T4 will do that as well. One advantage, however, of these MRF tires is that the profile is slightly taller. That also gives it better ground clearance, makes it better equipped to take on the slightly poor road conditions that you're going to encounter every day.
But on poor road conditions, the suspension does show its basic nature. The USDs on the standard Speed 400 feel far superior, not only for bump absorption but also for handling. The T4 feels more like a standard street bike in comparison and loses a bit of that premium feel. It has a better seat though, with a roundish profile that is not only more comfortable but also makes gripping the tank a bit easier. And if you already own a Speed 400, this seat could be a good swap for you. But if you are in the market for a new Speed 400, I would rather stretch the EMI by a little bit and get the full-fat version instead than the T4. While the T4 does most of the things that the standard Speed 400 does, it simply lacks the classy feel and poise in my books. But in this segment, price rules the roost.
So let's sum it up. I think the T4 in itself is a fairly good motorcycle. It will do most of the things that the standard Speed 400 might do, and then some. And I think from that point of view, the Speed 400 should definitely feel a bit threatened. I won't be surprised if it doesn't garner too many numbers with the inclusion of this in the portfolio now.